Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Pull Up with Limbs and Things. Tonight, we're talking about Parkinson's disease, and we are talking about it from the physical therapy aspect, but also from the Parkinson's Foundation. And Mrs. Dawn Lewis is with us from the Parkinson's Foundation to give us some more information. As always, Pull Up with Limbs and Things is for you to confirm something you know, to challenge something you don't know, and to be able to share that information with someone else. So, I want to tell you a little personal story about me from Parkinson's disease. My very first patient when I was out of school was someone who had Parkinson's disease. And a lot of times in physical therapy school, we learn about the stages of Parkinson's and we think that everyone is supposed to fit each stage. This patient did not. And so they thought they were in their late stages of Parkinson's disease. However, they didn't require an assistive device. They were still living alone, but they had the hallucinations and the delusions. And they came because they had a fall. And so I wanted to bring the Parkinson's Foundation on tonight to talk to you about the different stages, but also to know how to identify if you have Parkinson's, or maybe you want to seek information about, do you really have it, or is there a possibility that you do? But also to give you an opportunity to see that everyone is not cookie cutter. Just like we're all unique, we all don't fit into each one of those categories. And the importance of movement, because movement is so important in maintaining an active lifestyle, even if you're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So tonight, Ms. Lewis, we want to welcome you in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about the Parkinson's Foundation and any details you want to share for possibly an aging adult or someone living with Parkinson's disease.
Okay, thank you. I will. And I want to thank everyone for being a part of this talk tonight. I'm excited to be here because I always love to have an opportunity to talk about Parkinson's disease. It's one that many people aren't familiar with. And I just want to take a moment just to share my story. It's amazing how, things come full circle.
Hmm.
I remember about 30 years ago, I was working downtown and on a lunch break. And as I was walking back to my office, I had noticed a cluster of people in front of this store. When I had gotten closer, I realized that it was Muhammad Ali sitting there, and people were getting his autograph. And at that time, I did know that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, so I was really curious. I didn't know anything about it.
Hmm.
And so as I approached him, at first, it was shocking because I kept thinking of the boxer in the ring and quickly saw that, he was not that person anymore
Yeah.
and was trying to understand how something like that could be so detrimental in someone's life. So here I am, 30 years later, working for the Parkinson's Foundation.
Uh-huh.
And it's what's so interesting is that while it's been that many years, there hasn't been much research that has taken place with regard to Parkinson's disease. So I'm so happy to be a part of the foundation because our mission is to ensure to help someone have a better quality of life. So we focus on not only the care, but also support and research.
Hmm.
We want to be able to educate people on what the signs and symptoms are, how to manage their journey with Parkinson's, and as well as educate them so that they can be aware of what's going on in the research world in order to either improve the treatment that's already here and available to them, and hopefully one day to find a cure. So we're pretty active.
I'm glad you
Um,
mentioned that it's a journey because there is so much importance with that. A lot of people think that the diagnosis comes as soon as you go to the doctor, right?
Absolutely. And it does
The
not.
case. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to give you an opportunity, if you're watching, to hashtag live. Let us know you're here. Or if you're watching this on the replay, hashtag replay, just so we can see you here with us. So, Miss Lewis, please continue.
Okay. So, what is Parkinson's disease?
Mhm.
Parkinson's is a progressive neurological degenerative disease. And what happens in the deep parts of the brain, which is called the substantia nigra, is that the dopamine levels are decreased in the which is the neurotransmitter that controls, the messaging and the planning of the movement that we have. So because these cells are dying off, it makes it difficult for someone who's been diagnosed with Parkinson's to manage those motor skills. But I also want to mention that it's not only the motor skills that are affected,
Hmm.
there are non motor symptoms as well. And I'm just going to share some of those with you today. Because oftentimes we see someone with Parkinson's, and we associate it with the tremors like
Right.
Muhammad Ali, Michael J. Fox.
Hmm.
Um, those people have been able to put Parkinson's on the map because Parkinson's has been around since 1817,
Wow.
but not much has been done.
Hmm.
So when we focus on the symptoms that are affecting someone, it's important that we they get a diagnosis. So for anyone who has a tremor, that's the one we most know. Of course, most likely you're going to go see a doctor to find out what's going on.
Hmm.
But some of the other symptoms that we don't even think about is small handwriting. We may look at our handwriting and consider it to be small. If there's no change, of course, it's not anything of significance.
Hmm.
But if someone does notice that their handwriting was once larger and now it's smaller, again, that's something to be aware of. I do want to disclose I am not a medical practitioner in any way, but it's important that people can begin to understand what they need to look out for and seek medical advice in order to get a final diagnosis to see if there's anything that they need to be concerned about. So I mentioned tremors,
Yes.
I mentioned small handwriting, loss of smell. If you have ever met anyone with Parkinson's, they may have shared with you that they can no longer smell. They've lost that particular sense. I know a gentleman, he was so funny because when he was in a room with a group of people, he had said to them, "Hey, I hope, I don't have any body odor because I can't smell." But that was his way of getting them to laugh and really
Yeah. Yeah.
understand.
Uh huh.
Um, Another symptom that people do experience is trouble sleeping. And again, as I'm going through these symptoms,
I was just writing what you were saying.
oh, okay. As I'm going through these symptoms, you'll probably notice that, these are some things that just occur with normal aging or some type of other medical conditions. But
Hmm.
again, these are some of the signs and symptoms for Parkinson's. When people have trouble sleeping, they may also experience restless leg syndrome, or even nightmares. So again, understanding what's going on there is so important.
Hmm.
Um, Constipation. Now, constipation is not a symptom, but it's a non motor symptom. We recently learned over the past 10 years that constipation is a symptom of Parkinson's, especially it's been diagnosed with people who are young onset. And when I talk about young onset, these are people under 50 years old
Hmm.
who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's. Um, Another symptom that they may experience is a softer low voice. And it's very low. So you really have to sometimes strain in order to hear them. They are unaware that they do have a low voice.
Hmm.
So sometimes, they may, say something back at you that you just can't hear me.
Yeah.
So again, understanding what these signs and symptoms are is important. Stooping or hunching, because everything is muscle control, motor
Sure.
skills.
Yep.
So they may experience something like that. Shuffling is another symptom, because may have some rigidity. This
Hmm.
causes them not to move as easily. So there's going to be some gait issues. Now, stages do vary with regard to people with Parkinson's.
Right.
Now, we refer to it as the designer disease because everyone has one prominent symptom that's different from someone else. How it progresses is going to be different because if there's other morbidities that need to be considered,
Hmm.
um, that could cause someone to move from one stage to another stage quickly.
Right.
We usually classify the first three stages with people who are still able who are mobile on
Mhm.
their own and do not need any assisted living any assisted device.
Uh-huh.
Um, we also, they may not experience any cognitive impairment at all. Um, they may suffer with some anxiety because, as I mentioned earlier, but there's non-motor symptoms. So you have that anxiety, you have that depression. Another one is a masked face. So if you're ever talking to someone with Parkinson's and you're just excited about something and they look disinterested, that's not the case.
Right.
It's just that that's how it has affected them.
Mhm.
So for someone who's in the latter stages, which are like stage 4 and stage 5, that's where they're going to need some assistance. That's where the person who's the care partner during the first 3 stages, that
Right.
is there when they just need some assistance,
Yes.
becomes the caregiver.
Mhm.
Transitioning is so difficult because, as you know, we all want to be independent.
All of us.
Yes, every single moment. And even though I may not be able to move, I still think in my mind, my
Yes.
perception is
Mhm.
what's important. So yes, so it's important that real people really take advantage of caregiving, whether it's the person who they're living with, but also outside hiring assistance through these home care agencies,
Right.
so that they can get the attention and care to prevent falls,
Mhm.
because that is so difficult for people living with Parkinson's to recover from. Um, to finally, having speech or swallowing issues,
Mhm.
which is also an occurring. Hallucinations is really tough. Not only the individual who's experiencing it, but that care partner or caregiver, because they just don't know what to do.
Right.
When they're sharing a story about there's snakes in the rooms and I need to get my gun.
Mhm.
So managing that through medication and getting the proper care. One thing I do want to mention is that it's so important to have a multidisciplinary medical team.
Definitely.
Not only your neurologist, a psychologist, a physical therapist, a podiatrist,
Mhm.
which people often don't think about, and then someone, a nutritionist. And most importantly, we always encourage people to have a movement specialist on that team, because that movement specialist has been certified to help manage someone's journey with a movement disorder. So they understand that all of these specialists are important in maintaining a lifestyle for as long as they can independently.
Awesome. Those are some great tips. I see we have quite a few people on, so we want to give you an opportunity to hashtag live just so we can see you. We can't see you if you don't hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're catching this later. So we do have some questions over here, and I want to give you an opportunity to answer them. So the first one is, can Parkinson's be prevented?
Um, At this time, there's no research that demonstrates that it can. We are still trying to determine what causes Parkinson's, and that's why research for Parkinson's really didn't begin heavily, I would say, until maybe about 20 years ago. And so much research has the research that has taken place is identifying treatments that are currently effective with people with Parkinson's.
Mhm.
Um, we're doing some genetic testing to determine, right now we know that maybe about 5 to 10% um, have have likelihood the likelihood of getting being diagnosed with Parkinson's exists, with family.
Mhm.
But as far as preventing it, we do not know. We of course we always recommend eating well,
Mhm.
and proper nutrition, exercise, and things of that sort. But we also know that the environment also has an effect on people with Parkinson's. The Vietnam War vets who were exposed to Agent Orange. There's research that shows that the Parkinson's related symptoms that they have resulted in that particular chemical.
Right. And I would just add to not necessarily the prevention with physical therapy, but also the slowing of the progression.
Yes.
Just with constant movement and training that person in whatever area is difficult for them to do, especially helping them through the freezing episodes,
Hmm.
and being able to prevent falls so that they don't have a sequel of other
Yes.
medical issues that result from that fall.
Absolutely, especially yes, if you've been diagnosed with Parkinson's, movement is critical.
Yeah.
And when we talk about movement at least 3 times a week, it's
Hmm.
amazing what difference it can make. And when you're doing movement, it's also coordinated with also brain exercises. I've
Yes.
been in different classes where a person is riding a bicycle, but they're also reading something and being tested with different letters and things like that to make sure that they have that brain and motor skill coordination. But
Right.
exercise, eating well, because again, that digestive system is important because of the blood flow right back to the brain.
Hmm.
So it's important that you take those things into consideration.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there, hi Jana, is there a clear diagnostic test or is it just based off of symptoms for diagnosis of Parkinson's?
Ah, you know a little bit there. Yes, it is based off the symptoms of Parkinson's. There is no test out there that can determine whether or not you have Parkinson's.
Right. And how
Um,
long does it take?
it's at least a 6 month to up to a year diagnosis where you're constantly going into the doctor's office. They're testing your reflexes and doing different tests for your motor skills.
Mhm. Okay. So true. My in laws are going through this. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Okay, Brandon has another question. How can physical therapy help with freezing spells and Parkinson's? Okay, so when I've worked with patients, we have been working on making sure they're able to um, get past it. So when you're moving, doing bigger movements, there's something called LSVT Big. PTs
Mhm.
and OTs are trained in that, and I do a lot of boxing with people and doing stepping and moving in different directions, but also the normal things that we do. So being able to transfer or stand up from a sitting position, being able to walk faster and walk slower, and being able to have your brain recall those different movements so that when it does happen, you know what to do. I actually had um, a patient where we were walking across the street and they had a freezing episode,
Mm,
and that was a scary moment for that patient because it wasn't necessarily a busy street, but one that he had a fear of having that freezing episode happen. And so I was just directing traffic as it passed, but we were doing like swaying motions and things to help him get ready to move when the spell did pass away. So there are things that we can do to help a person when they're going through it, but also to teach them not to panic, because that anxiety that you mentioned before can
mhm.
really hinder your movement if you're not calm enough when it happens.
Absolutely. Anxiety can throw everything off. And
Hmm.
then also, what's so important is taking your medication on time because generally freezing will occur during an off time
Hmm.
episode.
Right.
So that's why it's so important. And again, I just can't reiterate it enough. Exercise, 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 because that gives you helps with balance, help with flexibility,
Hmm.
and makes it a difference. And you had alluded to Rock Steady. There's a certified program called Rock Steady Boxing, and it's amazing how people who could not move after taking this exercise for a period of time had more flexibility and again felt better because that anxiety level was lowered.
Right. You know, one thing I want to make sure that we mention too is that you have a background with the Alzheimer's Association,
Hmm.
right? And then you came to the Parkinson's Foundation.
Yes.
Now, what's the difference that you've seen?
Conversation with the person with Parkinson's. And
Yes.
what's so neat is, with Alzheimer's,
Hmm.
most of the conversation is with the caregiver. And
Yes.
when you do have, especially um, when a caregiver is involved, it's generally because that person's memory loss has progressed significantly.
Mhm.
So you're having a conversation, you really don't get to understand what's going on inside that person because they can't communicate it.
Yes.
Working with people with Parkinson's, they tell me, they share with me their story,
Hmm.
their frustration, especially in the beginning. When they're diagnosed, they just can't believe, I have Parkinson's. My and the average age on where people are diagnosed is 62 years old.
Hmm.
So you have to think about those people who are young onset, who are been diagnosed under 50, who are
Yeah,
raising children, who are in the midst of their career. So accepting the diagnosis is difficult. And, we have programs to help them build some type of process to manage through it, which we call newly diagnosed, for newly diagnosed patients. So you give yourself time to go through that period of grieving, and then determine what your next steps are and to make sure you have the support. We offer support groups throughout the area, and it's important that people take advantage of it. Support groups, that's the other thing. Back to your question, what was so different? When I started presenting to support groups, I walked in thinking I would just see the caregiver, and it's the person with Parkinson's and their care partner. So
hmm,
it was amazing to see the interaction amongst the couples there. They have a social network and they travel together, whether it's a support group or an exercise group, they know each other. And that's what's so helpful in managing the disease from a mental perspective.
for sure. So, hi, Dr. Spears. Hi, Miss Carrion. All right. Hi, Miss Barbara. What is the average life expectancy with Parkinson's? And good evening, Miss Lewis.
Hello, Miss Barbara. Um, the average life expectancy, I just had a person who I had connected with last year, 100 years old, and she had lived with Parkinson's for at least 25 years. And that's how we look at the average lifespan with Parkinson's. People with Parkinson's can be as great as 30 years.
Hmm.
People who I've been in contact with who have great support, and that's what's so important,
Yeah.
because you're less likely to your health deteriorate, when you're less likely to fall because you
Yeah.
have somebody there to support you. People who have shorter life expectancies are people probably generally with high morbidities, just don't have the support in place.
Hmm.
Because again, with any type of illness as someone ages, a fall can be so detrimental and lead to other medical conditions.
For sure. Hi, Marnie. Many years ago, when I was in PT school, we were learning about using Tai Chi for Parkinson's patients.
Mm,
Is that still something that is recommended?
absolutely. We talk about movement, and Tai Chi is one of them. Yoga,
Yes.
dancing, boxing, cycling,
Hmm.
is it, all those types of movement programs is helpful. And then also Tai Chi, it also involves mental
Right.
focus.
Hmm.
And that's another reason why it's been helpful. There's a studio here who a gentleman teaches Tai Chi, and he is has a group that's 60 plus,
Okay.
and he over time has seen the improvement in people who take advantage of that. But yes,
Yeah.
that's not only body, it's mind and body
Hmm.
therapy.
Right. Okay. Those are all the questions I see so far. So if you're watching and you have a question you want to ask, please put it in the comments and we can make sure that we answer it. Miss Lewis, while we're waiting to see if there are any other questions, is there anything else that you want to share about Parkinson's that you think is lesser known?
I would say again, the non-motor skills for Parkinson's,
Hmm.
with any medical condition or with any symptoms that a person experiences, it's important that you seek medical advice. The earlier that you seek advice on a disease, the better off in you will have in managing it. For example, one of my I have ambassadors in the area, and there are people with Parkinson's.
Hmm.
She was diagnosed at 38 years old. She is now 53.
Mm-hmm.
And she is just as active because when she was first diagnosed, she started doing the things that were important in order to slow down the progression of
Yeah.
the disease.
And that is so important. So if you're watching and you know someone with Parkinson's, it is so important that they get to moving with someone who can help them along their journey, but also right in the moment when they're needing it before something happens that causes them to absolutely need therapy or something of that nature. You want them to connect with someone. Now, are there support groups that we should know about?
Yes, there are support groups. We have a couple in the DC area.
Uh-huh.
I'm responsible for Maryland, DC, Virginia, and some other states, and I know they're all over. The nice, the good thing with COVID is
Yeah.
that all of these groups meet virtually.
Hmm.
So you don't have to leave the comfort of your own home in order to take advantage of it. The ambassador that I recently mentioned, she just started a young onset online program because, again, she's 53 years old. She doesn't want to attend a support group with
Yes.
people who are 60 something years old.
Okay.
So, what she did was to design this program for people like her and younger, um, to be able to take advantage of the education
Hmm.
movement online. And so that's another program that I do recommend because,
Okay.
again, it's a different audience. And one last thing I'd like to say
Sure.
is that while Parkinson's is a progressive disease, it is not a fatal disease.
Right.
So that people really understand that because some people think, oh my goodness, I've been diagnosed. How long do I have to live? And
Right.
that's not the case.
That's so true. So we want you to make sure that you connect with Miss Lewis. Her information is at the bottom of the screen. It is 410-849-6114, or you can email her at dlewis@parkinson.org, or you can go online to the Parkinson Foundation at www.parkinson.org/mid-Atlantic. And then, of course, if you are ever in need of physical therapy services and you are in the DC area, you can contact Limbs and Things at limsandthings.com, or you can call 202-643-2636, or you can even send us an email at limsandthings@gmail.com. Miss Lewis, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I've learned a lot. I hope each one of you have too, to be able to share it with someone else, hopefully confirm something you know, or to challenge something you didn't know, to share that information with somebody else. Is there anything else you want to add?
I just want to say thank you again for spending your Saturday evening to learn about Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And please feel free to contact me. We have lots of resources, publications that are at no cost,
Hmm.
that will help people better understand the disease. As I mentioned, the support group, we have virtual online webinars 3 times a week to help educate you too.
Oh, one thing we forgot. What's happening October the 9th?
Oh, we did. Yes. On Saturday, October 9th,
Hmm.
I have an advisory board, and one of my board members is planning Jazz in the Woods at Aspenwood Senior Living Community located in Silver Spring, Maryland. It's another opportunity to learn more about Parkinson's, come out, have fun, and listen to some lovely jazz music and
Okay,
support the
say where that
foundation.
is one more time.
um, Aspenwood Senior Living
Okay.
in Silver Spring, Maryland,
October 9th at what time?
at from 12 until 4.
Okay. All right. If you want to support the Parkinson's Foundation, join us on October the 9th. Thank you so much again, Miss Lewis. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you have a good evening.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.